So I'm very pleased that we have Johan Louw, who from Aguru Business Solutions, who are going to talk to us about scaling a startup during COVID. So, Johan, the floor is yours. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Roelof, and thank you, Mark. First question, do we have my presentation on screen?
Yes, I certainly can see it. Thank you.
That's good news. That's good news. So technology is working. So firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity to present. Thank you to TEMMAMI and SAEC for giving this nomination for us to share our message with all of you today. It's certainly a privilege. Not quite sure if we are the best candidate to give you this information about the startup. But I thought it was worth to tell you about our journey and some of the key points that we went through in terms of thinking and analyzing and actions that we've taken and what the outcomes have been of that. And at the end, I'll share a bit of lessons learned and some insights that I've picked up as we've come along. Mark, I'm going to just start the presentation with answering your question. So clouds are mostly made of Linux servers. So how did we start our journey? So I'll start with a little bit of a background about myself, and then give you some insight on how the Aguru concept came about and some of the businesses that continued from there. So yeah, I'm not 17 years old. I'm also a bit of old hat. I've been working, had a career so far of 23 years. Started out in engineering, went on to project management, consulting, and ultimately executive business management. And this was in the industries of process engineering, later on in industrial automation. And my last corporate role was in the conformity services business. I served a variety of industries, largely from a raw material production beneficiation point of view, but also more in factory fabrication and those type of applications. Aguru is not my first attempt to start a business. I've given it a few goes over the years, but always corporate pulled me back, meaning that I started a business and then my first client ended up employing me in full. And then I did it again and I did it for a third time. And I said to myself, this time I'm going ahead and I'm not going to be just selling my man hours. I actually want to start a business. So Aguru was actually registered in 2017, but it lied dormant as I was continuing a corporate role. And it's only in December last year that we actually kicked off. I freed myself from the shackles of corporate constraints and became fully focused on developing the vision that I had with Aguru, which at that stage was still largely undefined, not sure how we're going to service the clients. But in the name, Aguru, we'll send you a guru, we'll find you a guru. It was certainly a concept of working with significant expertise and then also business solutions, meaning we're going to serve businesses, some kind of business. It was also not the first time that I started businesses, but I've always done it for others. But all of these instances were spin-off businesses, meaning it was established business that was going into a new market or having different areas. So Aguru is really a clean, fresh start effectively from nothing other than a belief that there are opportunity. So we went through thinking about what should we do. We started thinking about what are we good at. This is irrelevant because it's specific to where we are, but it's the process about thinking what are you good at, thinking about what is it that you enjoy, what you are interested in, and then lastly, what are the trends? And I think this is where Mark has really given some good insights now about some of the trends that are taking place in the market. Now, on each of these and many others, I can probably speak for an hour on each topic to give further context about what those opportunities are. And I think Mark has given us a good lead in. But just to highlight a few, we're looking at something like artificial intelligence, which is still after 50 years, after 20 years, after 5 years, depending on which kind of reference you take, it's still in its infancy. There's so many opportunities. And we have to think about using this as an opportunity for South Africa, for our businesses, for us as individuals, and how we can differentiate ourselves, because there's still so much to come from that space. Something like blockchain, and I'll talk about later, one of our projects, but how does that inform society? It's not just a crypto Bitcoin concept. That's how it started, but there's so many other applications which we can go in. We also look at trends in terms of what are legislative behavior. So currently POPIA is a big theme. During lockdown, the president announced that POPIA has now come active. The 1-year grace period has kicked off on the 1st of July. So all of you, anybody, every business has to be POPIA compliant by the 30th of June next year. So this is a space where there's now going to be a lot of activity, and it's not just a legal process. It actually encapsulates all of the activities in business. Mark talked about cybersecurity. We also see different trends that have come up about, like the gig economy, where people are not so sure about wanting permanent employment. They actually want to work projects. They start and they finish a project after a few months. It's more important for them to bring their expertise to a company rather than to meet the people at the water cooler for a 20-year period. Remote work was, of course, now accelerated with lockdown, but that was already a trend that was picking up. And something that I'm particularly interested in is in the agricultural tech space, because there is a concern about the availability of food security, food sovereignty, as we go forward with the growing global population, and global warming also have impact on food availability. So these are some of the things that you have to think about as you start a business. I also went and I did a bit of research, and I looked at the kind of the environment that we find ourselves in. I've previously been involved with listing a business, and I was shocked when I got this information from the World Bank to realize that South Africa has only seen a decline over the last 20 years in the number of listed companies. Now, that trend also takes place in other areas like the United States and Canada, but just look at these ratios in terms of the number of people globally. So that would be a global average per publicly listed company. And we see South Africa as an outlier. We see the trend of decline as an outlier. But look at the other side, on a positive outlier, a place like Canada, only 11,000 people per public listed company. And I captured the thoughts around this because I'm concerned in South Africa, we as SMMEs and entrepreneurs, to get ourselves going, we need that large corporate business as that anchor tenant, that anchor client to get ourselves going, to be able to scale our product, scale our market. And we are in a highly competitive space. And I think this is an area where maybe government can do more. There's a lot of focus on SMMEs, but I think there also needs to be a focus on building big business in South Africa to allow SMMEs to construct it. I wrote an article about this earlier this year. Actually, I think the day or so that we went into lockdown. So you can go and read some of these key points that I've captured there. But it was really insightful for me to understand, to get into this entrepreneurial market. It's an extremely competitive space that we go in, and it's therefore so important to engage with a large customer to get that grounding. So some of the key points here is just that to establish, you're gonna need a corporate to get yourself going. Look at their programs for SMME support. To the corporates, I say, look at your communities. You might have gems there that just need to get off the ground. Of course, for entrepreneurs, you cannot build your business on a single customer. You will always start, your first customer is your first customer, but you have to look at how you can scale from there, and then bringing in about other ecosystems. And then it's all about competitiveness. Don't sit in your laurels. Don't say, well, I've got a business now from Eskom, or I've got a business from Sasol, I'll be good. You've got to look beyond the borders for in case there's other competitive alternatives that they will consider. No guarantees. Nothing brings guarantees. It's about the delivery and the value that you add to your client. So what is it that we had to work with? Obviously, our knowledge, experience, worries, and certainly those worries that the world has. It is worries that you as an individual have, cash flow, all of these type of things, looking at trends. But what are the things you lack? As an individual starting a business, you lack resources, you lack finances, and of course, the first day you usually don't have a client. We looked at the type of business model. So firstly, inherently I'm a consultant, so and I like that type of action, giving advice. So that made a lot of sense. But of course, when COVID started, how do you consult when you're locked in your own house? You can't go to a client, you can't learn their environment, you can't give advice about how they can become more efficient because you're not allowed to travel. Innovator, yes, certainly innovate, and maybe not the traditional way, but there are opportunities that we've tended to over time. And then the real concept came about as an aggregator, and that's actually bringing consulting and innovating and project management and all of these aspects together, to being able to look at a client from a holistic problem statement point of view. And sometimes it's also helping the client to get that problem statement going, and then moving towards solutioning, and then by bringing a network of skills together to be able to deliver that to the market. And this speaks in the end of the day to Aguru, where we say we'll send you Aguru, we'll find the right people. They are either in our network, or we will extend from their network to be able to bring those solutions to the market. What are the type of problems we wanted to solve? What is really grouped in 4 areas. Firstly, I've always been very particular and obsessed about giving people a safe and meaningful work experience. I think it's something that we really need to, as each individual, just live for every single day. No man, no woman should leave their workplace in a worse state than they got there. It should always improve. And giving people a meaningful work experience and let them work safely is a critical element. So a lot of our thinking in terms of solutions is driven in that space. We also want people to do transparent and equitable business. So how can I have a fair chance against another person? How can I ensure that I integrate certain capabilities? And how can I prepare myself for a world of digital workers? So how can I become a cyborg before I get replaced by a RPA robot or something like that? So it's also about getting into the space of getting access to people, giving training, delivering integrated solutions, and then finally also from a maximizing value point of view. So how does a client get better value from an investment that they make? And as you can see, just in this 4 definitions, there's already so many areas where we saw business opportunities, where we can target activities. And if you go each into them, there are more. There are so many opportunities out there. And if you go back to that article I wrote there, I started the article talking about the concept of money follows risk. So work at understanding your client's risk and how much money they're willing to pay to transfer that risk, because the money will follow the risk. And if you can absorb some of those risks, and through your skills, through your network, your capability, you can start solving some of those problems. You have a business that you can get going. Of course, as you start a business, it's all about building identity. You want to do everything, but you can't do everything because you're limited in resources, you're limited in funding, you're limited in clients. So we try to reduce our thinking to differentiate between where it is that we focus on strategy, where it is that we focus on our clients' well-being, the people, where we have specific solutions that can unlock asset value and manage data and things like that. And then finally is that aggregator concept, that being able to work as an ecosystem to bring together to solve a larger or more complex problem, or perhaps a problem faster. Some of the projects that we've tackled in this time, the one that we felt worth sharing with you, it's obviously very contextual. And the space we find in is a contact tracing solution that we developed. So back in April, as we went into lockdown, I was thinking and I was doing a bit of research, and everybody was talking about applications that would be used to do contact tracing. And I thought to myself, that's not going to work. Firstly, we don't have a high adoption of smartphones in South Africa, or let's rather say even in an Africa context. And secondly, I'm not so sure that I want to be tracked. I don't think somebody needs to know my movements, where I've been, to be able to do contact tracing. So after some thought, we came up with the idea to rather have a Bluetooth enabled card. Just like an access card, it's a little bit thicker because it's got a bigger battery, wanted it to last a year. But that we wear then, just as we already wear a access card as we go into the workplace. And between the cards, they will be able to pick up contact as a proxy that there's been contact between the people. So it works that if people are within 2 meters from each other, it picks up the contact. So now we've eradicated the issue of expensive smartphone. We've eradicated the issue of people having to be taught to work an application. We got away with the issue about privacy and people feeling that they are being tracked. And it's a straightforward, elegant, simple system that we can help with contact tracing. And the companies can take actions to ensure that the people are operating safely. And if there's an instance of a COVID-19 infection, then they can act fairly quickly then to get the report, ensure that people are informed to go into isolation, etc. So yeah, we managed to get this going while in lockdown, physically using parts and bits and pieces that were lying around the houses of some of the engineers that we're working with. They built a concept. Eventually, as we went into level 4, we could go back to the factory. We could, put components together. It took 9 weeks to get to the first MVP. It's a minimum value product. We partnered with a potential client where we deployed the system at risk. And yeah, after 100 days, we had 12,000 users, 3 corporates, 10 sites, with more coming in terms of using this solution. So yes, it was a perfect storm. It was a perfect environment, but it was also about analyzing what the market trends are and considering if that will be successful, and if you could disrupt, could you have an alternative? And we think we have a valid option. It was quite interesting to see that sometime after we announced our product, about a month or 6 weeks later, Singapore, that was one of the leading countries in terms of having app-based contact tracing, gave up on their direction and developed a very similar system to ours to hand out 5.5 million cards to their population to do contact tracing exactly the same way, using exactly the same technology. Other projects that we're doing, for instance, and I'm not going to go to everything, but just in brief detail, again, speaking to the subject of being able to transfer skill, we've got a program we call 4IR Essentials for Decision Makers. But from there, we're building into TTG, Training Tech Guru, which is about aggregating content, creating a platform where people can put content. The aim is to have that content certified so that you can get your CPD points and all of those things. But it's really a single platform. So rather than each company, each technology company having to invest in their own separate DLMS, it's a digital learning management system, there's a platform where we can aggregate that content. And ultimately what we want to see is that people can actually take a journey as they transition through various stages of their career by having a one-stop where they can flow into bits of information. Other project which I'm very excited about, this is my passion project, is Inkloli. Inkloli is a blockchain to service the product certification and supply chain management. So our technology partner here, first deployment was in the agricultural space, sort of more animal husbandry. But the whole concept is that we can use the blockchain where there's transparency about the transfer of custody. So from production to distribution through to final consumption, there's various processes for sampling, for testing, for metrology to ensure that quantities, etc., are correct. And this is being captured on a blockchain to ensure that all entities involved can see transparent transaction taking place. It is cast in stone, and we can be sure that when a digital contract is initiated, that all of the necessary actions are in place, all of the actors are in place, and the solution is delivered efficiently, transparently, and we also believe in the long term it will actually reduce cost of business. Some of the lessons that we've learned through this journey, and I think it's probably the slide that is really of value to anyone in the audience that might be embarking on this journey. You have a purpose, find it, think about it, engage with trusted ones around you, think about the people that you've served in the past. And if your aim is to become an entrepreneur, or perhaps to support the entrepreneur, make sure that you explore that question. I think it's important that one does what you enjoy. I think to go through life and just have a 9-to-5 thinking is not going to be the most fulfilling life achieved. But I've lived that life, and I've got the benefits of that, and it certainly gives me the grounding now to take forward. I think it's worth saying to play to your strengths and outsourcing your weaknesses. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, you're confronted with a number of things that needs to get done. You don't always have access to resources, and you have to be honest with yourself about what you are good at and where it is that you need support. Then coming back to the reality we find ourselves in right now, we have to forget about the past in the sense of things just don't work as they did in 2019. How people act has changed, how supply chains work has changed, availability of things, just simple things like how a courier can operate. Maybe you commit to your client, you'll deliver it in 72 hours, when in fact the courier is not going to even pick it up in 72 hours because of constraints that they have for traveling or cross-border transactions or international flights. Of course, today we start now with level 2, so we'll see how things figure out from there. But certainly a lot of change have come into play. So I think the first thing is one has to admit, not be in denial, admit and move forward on unlearning certain behaviors, things that are not necessary. You might do things that have worked for you in a corporate environment that as an entrepreneur, it's just, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the resource to be able to do that, and you have to unlearn those behaviors and then relearn those essentials, focus on the things that you need to take your business forward. There's a lot of information out there. You must wear your armpies, the old thingies that we gave the kids before they started swimming. Don't drown in the information. Be persistent in what it is that you aim to find. Otherwise, you're going to just end up scrolling through pages and pages and pages of content and never find the direction. I think your most valuable asset is your network. And it should never be a stagnant network. That should be a network that you continue to invest in. As Mark say, maybe the days of having 1,000 business cards are over. There's platforms like LinkedIn. I've met since lockdown, I think probably about 2,000 people. I continue to engage regularly with about 50 or 60 of them. There's some of those that I've since figured out are scammers, and they have other intentions, and you have to filter out. But your network has to be this dynamic aspect that you keep working at. Ask questions. Ask questions from yourself. Challenge yourself. Get people to challenge your perspective. Or if you have a good idea, also try to find people that can complement your perspective to reaffirm whether you are moving in the right direction. And if you cannot do it yourself, if you've got a team up. Another point is admin. For entrepreneur, admin consumes your capacity to innovate and add value. So it is something you've got to delegate. You've got to have support in that aspect. Otherwise, your business is going to be stagnant. But you have to do your business correctly. You have to, register a company. You've got to have your VAT number. You've got to have all of those things in place if you want to actually see your business scaling and getting access to those corporates that can give you the necessary platform. Use social media, develop your brand, create content, publish, participate. If you have opportunity like this to speak and share, certainly do that. But I think it's also a case of, paying forward, being able to offer help to others where appropriate. But there's other concerns or caveats. Take care about trust. Particularly now, it's more difficult to kind of sense people. You're not around the table with them. You don't, as Mark said, you don't get that opportunity to have a conversation afterwards. So you also have to do your digital due diligence. Look at the person's LinkedIn profile, engage with them a number of times before you start taking decisions, before you take any risks. Keep the basics in check. Cash flow is king for entrepreneur. There's a lot of things to do, and you can very quickly do a lot of things that consumes cash. But if you haven't got a client that is actually helping you to fund that, you can find yourself in a stiff situation. Then just keep telling the story. So on Friday, when I was doing this presentation, I got an email in the inbox from HBR, as one of the content providers that I follow, and they gave this message, and I thought I'll share this with you as well because it speaks perfectly into the context that I wanted to share. It says, identify a problem that you have a personal connection to, identify the shortcomings in your industry, and then make sure that you can bring value to customers. How can you make their life easier? You should be doing something that you are willing to go out of your way to solve for them. If it feels like work to you, then that's probably not something to build a business on. It must really be something that you're passionate about to help other clients. And you have to basically find yourself in a situation that you have no choice but to start this business. It might not necessarily only be not that you don't have the choice, that maybe the world doesn't have the choice, or your community doesn't have a choice, or your client doesn't have a choice, and that is the reason why you are motivated to take this direction. I then also noticed this little diagram on LinkedIn. It's been going around, you probably have all seen it, but rather than just scrolling through, sometimes these things are just absolute wisdom. And one has to actually park and deeply engage with each of these messages that are coming about. And I think for us, at the end of the day, that's Aguru, is we driving our purpose. We're building our network. We're a small business, but I see myself as a CEO of infinite amount of people. Experiment, help people, but be transparent about what you do. Be clear about what your boundaries are and how do you need to extend that. With that, I say thank you very much for all of you listening to me. I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Johan, for a very interesting conversation.